Hello, this is Ben from Team Garlic Bread. I'm here to introduce our game, Shotgun Chefs. Each member of the team will give you a breakdown of the work they have completed on this project. As I've introduced myself already, I'll begin this video with a discussion of the work I've contributed for this project. In this section you'll see the work I've completed on cooking and crafting systems in the game. To begin with, the majority of the blueprint actors involved in the cooking system contain a tag that identifies them. This information is captured by other items when they collide. This allows for physics-based collisions that allow items to combine into compounded ingredients. This is also true for some of the kitchen tools like the knife and the rolling pin, which will allow you to chop up ingredients or roll them out. Although these tools are ready for implementation, they will not be available in the submission version of the game. As for how the rest of the system works, after you create the final form of your uncooked recipe, you place it on a tray which uses a tag array system to make sure that the object that is being attached has a matching tag from the array. Once attached, you will take the tray and attach actor to the oven where it will be then cooked. If everything is done right, your cooked item will replace the uncooked item and you can send your finished item onto the service counter where it will be traded for ammunition. However, make sure not to put items in the oven that are already cooked, or else they'll burn. Moving on to some of the smaller pieces, I worked on the level design for the kitchen level. I decided to keep it small and concentrated so the player wouldn't spend their time trying to navigate through a larger kitchen space when we wanted to make this part of the game a respite from the hordes. I also worked on interaction input mappings that allow you to pick up items using a physics handler system to move them around in front of you and remove food from the tray. Furthermore, I worked on creating the level transfer, post-process volume, inputting data and components for food item pickup in the inventory system, some of the widgets for fading to white, the initial main menu and its functionality, as well as implementing the ability to pause the game during runtime. And finally, I also spent time ensuring that the GitHub was working, that everyone's commits merged as expected, and general bug fixing and hotfixes to keep the game in a functional state.
Hi, my name is Zach. In our game, Project Garlic Bread or Shotgun Chefs, I was responsible for most of the inventory systems. So to start it off, if you look at an item and you press G, it will add it to the inventory. And to open your inventory, you press I. Within the inventory, there is a drag and drop system, so you can use the left mouse button to drag your items between all of your slots, and it will just tether to the nearest slot once you release the mouse button. Inside of the inventory, there is also an action menu. If you right click on an item, it will prompt you with three options: equip/use, drop one, or drop all. Equip/use is only applicable to certain items. So for example, if you had a piece of food you wanted to eat, you could use it and it would be consumed from your inventory after performing the desired effect. With the drop one, it will drop one from the stack, and with the drop all, it will drop all from the stack. Whenever you're dropping an item, it will drop it within a random position within a 15-degree cone from your current viewport. So, if I quit out of the inventory and we move over to the container, you can interact with containers. You can predefine what goes in a container's inventory, and then if you want to loot a container, all you need to do is simply just drag over from the container to your inventory. You can also place items back in the crate and then press G to close out. A useful thing that I implemented with this inventory is that it is ready for multiplayer. I've made it so that all the items replicate, so it will spawn on both the client side and the server side, and the inventory will make the relevant server calls for when dropping items from your inventory. It will spawn it in the client side as well as the server side. On top of this, you can also place items in crates and stuff, and other people on the client side will be able to see it as well. So that way you can kind of trade in items with each other, or you can like drop items for each other and pick it up. On top of this, all the inventory data is stored in an array, and that array can be edited fairly easily, so it's just all stuck on a component. So you can pre-instance chests with loot. All you need to do is go into the component and just change the content in there to whatever you want to add to your crate. And that's about all I've done. So thank you for listening.
Since this was a 3D game and we had a certain art style, We needed 3D assets for the game, and due to this, my role in the team was to mainly be a 3D modeler as well as creating the mechanics for the shooting. When it came to the topology of the models themselves, it was important to create a balance between low poly as well as making the models identifiable. Because of this, a lot of the models have quite low polygons to create this effect, and I actually took inspiration from Banjo-Kazooie in this regard, as in Banjo-Kazooie, the models are also quite low poly, however you can still tell what they are due to the art style. With the textures, I also went for something quite flat, as I think it fit well with the cartoony style that we're going for within the game. I also created the assets for the actual environment, including the tables, chairs, doors, lights, and cabinets. I wanted to make the textures slightly more realistic in comparison because I felt like doing this would allow the player to recognize the projectiles more and would therefore make the game feel more in the player's control rather than getting confused of where the projectile is due to a brightly coloured environment. For the enemy skeletal mesh, I was tasked with making the enemies humanoid whilst still making them different enough to where it doesn't feel like you're attacking actual humans. This was difficult to pull off, but after a few redesigns, I managed to create a balance that I was happy with. For the topology, I actually had to make them higher poly, as if I didn't, the animations wouldn't be as clean as I'd hoped. Once I actually made the topology for the model, I then made sure to make the enemy colourful to contrast the enemies and the background, as that way the enemy would know where the enemies are located on the map. For the design of the actual enemy, I mainly took inspiration from Goombas, as their eyebrows are very distinguishable, and because of that, I wanted to create some very distinguishable features of the enemies to make them more iconic, such as the suit, the green skin, and the eyebrows. Now, for the projectiles themselves, I wanted to make sure they all have their own attributes, so they all have a different purpose. For starters, I made sure they all behave differently mechanically, with the dumpling being an assault rifle, the pizza being shurikens that pierce enemies, the crepes being sniper rifles, garlic breath being a flamethrower, and a cake being a grenade. I also gave them all advantages and disadvantages, such as the assault rifle having medium range, the cake having a long cooldown, and etc. This was done so you can't just stick with one projectile the entire time, and if you have certain projectiles left, you'll be forced to change your strategies. I also incorporated limited ammo into the actual gameplay of the game by making an ammo limit. So for example, if the player gets 12 dumplings, they'll reload once they shoot 10 projectiles, and once the reload ends, they will be left with 2 projectiles left. Finally, each projectile has their own respective cooldowns, so they all behave differently with the shooting rate, giving them all their own identity.
I'm Kat, and for our project, Shotgun Chefs, I was the person in charge of creating the AI as well as the map design. Jack was the one that made the assets, however I was the one who put them in this world. So this is the Arena Horde mode. As you can see, there are AI characters currently. Those ones are following me. They have both sight and hearing perception, so if I leave their sight, they will currently go to my last known location and scream when they cannot find me. Then they will continue to move randomly about, hunting me down, as you can see over there. Once they do spot me, they do come straight for me, and when they get close enough, they will attack me. They will also scream after attacking so that other enemies are alerted to their location. As you can see, they are chasing me and trying to kill me. The enemies can be killed as such, and they will be removed from the enemies remaining in the wave. I designed the map to have enough areas for the player to run around in and potentially hide to give themselves a break from the AI. That's why there's areas such as this, which lead them through short corridors to lose sight, as well as this open area upstairs where they cannot visibly see me unless they are going up the stairs. One of the hardest bits of creating this AI was adding the accompanying animations, as I am not good at animations. However, during this process I've been able to get better at doing them. At the end of night 1, you will be sent back to the kitchen area. There is only one night per night 1, however as the nights increase so do the amount of waves the player will have to complete. For example, night 2 there are 2 waves, and at night 5 it goes up to 3 waves. This is so the player does not feel overwhelmed right at the start with the amount of waves they have to complete. Another fact about my AI is there can only be so many on the board at once. It is capped to 10, so even if there are 20 remaining, there is a backlog queue of enemies that are wanting to spawn. They will only spawn when there is less than 10 on the map. There are currently 2 spawners in this corner and in the other corner, which the AI will pick at random to spawn to. This will obviously increase once there are more doors and more spawners within the world. As you can see, now that I've completed a wave, there is a countdown for a new wave to begin, and once that is done, the second wave starts. If the player dies, they are transported back to the start in the kitchen area, and they have not successfully completed the night. This means that when we start the night again, we will still be on night 2 instead of night 3.
The user interface draws inspiration from famous games such as Persona 5, Ape Out, and Overcooked. Both the pause and settings menu incorporate stylish and dynamic elements reminiscent of Persona 5, with its bold colors and non-conforming design. The controls menu and the cooking guide take inspiration from Ape Out, featuring a chef and a hungry customer behind a barred window. Finally, the main menu takes inspiration from menu of Overcooked 2 as a nod to another cooking game. These 3 games together helped inspire me to make a unique and bold UI which fits well within the game.